needed to make up his mind. He could see that you were the easy lady tonight. That's right, from the rhyme was used to spend the money for the pleasures of a sexy woman of the night. That's right, from the rhyme didn't cost him a dime for the pleasure of the girl in the band that night. With a sailor sailing port in a storm, he couldn't find another woman that night in sport, so he used you as a last resort. That's right, from the rhyme was used to spend the money for the pleasure of a sexy woman of the night. That's right, from the rhyme didn't cost him a dime for the pleasure of the girl. Thank you. So, it's time for the banjo again. Is Barry Luft here tonight? No. Okay. So, welcome Barry. Barry is an icon in the folk music world in Canada. He's a beautiful frailing banjo player. In fact, I'm taking lessons in frailing from Barry, because I play a bluegrass and a finger-picking style, and frailing is completely opposite. But Barry's an amazing teacher. But I tell you, it's not easy. It's very difficult. But welcome, Barry. Glad to see you here. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, then we'll have peace in the world. Jimi Hendrix said that. And there are many songs written about peace and anti-war songs. And I grew up in the 60s, and there was a massive folk boom in Ireland. And lots of protest songs, the times they are changing, blowing in the wind, we shall overcome, all these. That was the era that I got involved in folk music. And folk musicians and the singers and songwriters, they create a narrative for what's happening in the world. And there's a great song written by a guy called Ed McCurdy. This is back in the 50s. And he wrote this beautiful song. And in November of 1989, when the Berlin Wall was coming down, Tom Brokaw from CNN, he moved the cameras over to the east side of the wall, and there were hundreds of school children singing the song in protest for the horrible atrocities and wars and things, and promoting peace. It's a beautiful song, and it's called "Last Night I Had the Strangest Dream." And when we come back we repeat the first verse at the end. Hopefully you'll join in with me. Last night I had the strangest dream I'd ever had before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. I dreamed I saw a mighty room and the room was filled with men, and the paper they were signing said we'd never fight again. And when the paper was all signed and a million copies made, they all joined hands and bowed their heads, and a grateful prayer was prayed. And the people in the streets below were dancing all around, and guns and swords and uniforms lay scattered all around. Sing it with me. Last night I had the strangest dream I never had before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war again. Last night I had the strangest dream I never had before. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. I dreamed the world had all agreed to put an end to war. So I thought we'd do a little bluegrass number, and then I thought again, maybe not. But you know, I was taking notes, and there were a few people at the last song on Pucker Bulla that weren't singing, and I have a note of those people. So we'll be talking to you on the way out. So when people talk about bluegrass music, I often say, oh yeah, I play bluegrass music. And they say, oh, yeah, what's bluegrass music? And I say, well, you know the movie Deliverance. Anyway, that's the dueling banjos. That's from Deliverance, but because that they recognize and that's bluegrass music. That was a song. That was a tune played by Eric Weisberg, an amazing banjo player. And then the other one is, if they don't recognize that, if they're older than Deliverance, which is pretty old, they remember Bonnie and Clyde, and they say, "Oh, Bonnie and Clyde. Oh, yeah, remember that." That's Pokemon Breakdown. So, just so that you know that they're the two that everybody seems to recognize. But this is one from a little bluegrass band called the Dillards, written by Rodney Dillard, and this one is called Old Home Place. 1, 2, 3. Bob Dylan once said, he said, take care of all your memories because you can never relive them. And memory is a terrible thing, not a terrible thing, it's a wonderful thing, memory, but when you lose it, it's a terrible thing. I had an experience many years ago. I got a thing called transient global amnesia. And you just lose your memory for a few moments, but it's absolutely terrifying. You're totally disoriented. You just can't figure out time or space or anything, and you don't know what's happened. And it's just a little glimpse of what it must be like for people who have Alzheimer's disease. And it's a terrible, it's probably the most cruel disease of all because it steals our family and parents and friends. So this song was written by my wife, Marina. And it was the story of her father, excuse me, who passed away from Alzheimer's quite a few years ago. But it just sort of tells the story of how the person that you've known all your life and you've loved all your life, and suddenly they don't know who you are. And it's just the man I lived 30 years, the gentlest heart and spirit, ever strong. Now he hollers with a clenched fist, and his frightened eyes reflect, oh so sad. I'm so angry at the heartless thief who stole the mind and soul of my dear dad. You know this is a far cry from the man when I was just a baby, he would bounce me on his knee. We take long walks on Sundays, sharing ice cream at the store, helping me build memories he just can't remember anymore. He read me Curly Wee and Gussie Goose and heated up my pillow before bed. Said a prayer and tucked me in, and then checked for monsters underneath my bed. He helped me work out algebra, showed me how the planets all revolve. Now it seems a shame both of us are stuck here with a problem we can't solve. You know this is a far cry from the man just a baby, he would bounce me on his knee. Take long walks on Sundays, sharing ice cream at the store, helping me build memories he just can't remember anymore. He pretended he was mad at me when I once got a bad report at school. I could see right through. I knew firsthand that kindness was his rule. Now I watch bewildered as I see him throw his things across the floor. In the tangle of his memories, he's forgotten who he used to be before. You know this is a far cry from the man. Take long walks on Sundays, sharing ice cream at the store, helping me build memories he just can't remember anymore. He served proudly in the army, always loved and well respected by his friends. And though we fought some battles, he was always first to try to make amends. Let me call you sweetheart, was the song he sang to close my baby's eyes. And in my heart I sang the song as evening fell with shadows long, when it came time for us to say goodbye. So, a great Irish statesman called Edmund Burke, and he once said that all it takes for evil to survive and thrive is for a few men of good conscience to do nothing. And there are many things that have happened in the world over the last many years that make us think, you know, what is happening and should I do something? I remember meeting a woman, Barbara Oloroso, over in Ontario when I was on a speaking engagement, and she wrote a book called The Bullied and the Bystander. And very often we find ourselves as bystanders. And I read about the Veldiv roundup in Paris in 1942, and I thought, what a horrible thing to happen, where people just stood by and watched and let things happen. They didn't do anything. They were bystanders. And three things over the last probably 10 years or so or less stuck out in my mind that I just thought, this is really terrible. The first one was the Syrian crisis and the tyrannical dictator and killing his people and massacring his own people. I thought, this is terrible, and the whole world is watching this, and nothing is really happening. The second one was the atrocities being carried out by ISIS, and I thought, wow, this is terrible, and yet the whole world is watching, and not a huge amount is being done. And the third one was the case of Eric Garner on July 17th in 2014 in Staten Island, New York, where he died because he was in a chokehold by a police officer, and it was just terrible to watch when it was a live video. And I thought, wow, these are terrible things. And sometimes we just become bystanders, and let us not be bystanders. Let us stand up and try to stand up for right. Albert Einstein echoed Edmund Burke's statement, where he once said, the world will not be destroyed by those who do evil, but by those who watch them without doing anything. And this song is called The Whole World is Watching, and please join in the chorus. You don't listen to your people when you're walking down the saying there's a great adage in showbiz and in the music industry, and it says, "Be nice to people and treat them nicely on your way up." On your way up, and they'll be nice to you on the way down. So I was watching television back in the 70s, and I watched this interview with a model. Well, she had been a model. Now, she looked beautiful to me. She was in her 40s. She was 40, and she was saying to the interviewer, her life is really finished. You know, at 40, my goodness. But being in that business, she said, well, you can see the lines on my face. And she said, I realized I wasn't very nice to people. And of course, now I don't get the breaks because they're not nice to me because I wasn't nice to them. And she turned to alcohol and drugs and different things. So she thought her life was over. But there are a few things she said that just struck me. One of them was, she tried to hide the lines in her face, but she said, a fashion parade can't be held in the shade. I thought, wow, that's amazing. Of course it can't. You have to see the lights and see the people. And the other thing she said, he was asking her, what was her life like now? And she said, it's full of ifs and buts and whens and maybes. She said, I really I don't know what my future is. I don't know what's happening. And I just thought that's a terribly sad reflection on that industry when your age begins to creep up and you don't have the support and friends, and when you fall for drugs and alcohol. So I went home and I wrote the song and I called it Shady Lady. all along there. You were living in style and you were flashing your smile, but some people you're sorely neglected. Now your beauty is gone, you don't know where you went wrong, can't understand why you're being rejected. Shady lady, your life is crazy. It's full of ifs and buts and whens and maybes. Make it, but you've got to choose. You know you can win and you can stay off the blues. Maybe you'll find a brighter day tomorrow. Oh, Cozy, you know, Mother Teresa once said, she said, the world is full of good people. If you can't find one, be one. I thought, wow, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that does make sense is, again, wearing a hat when you're trying to put on a banjo. It's very awkward, but this next song was written by a guy called Philip Paul Bliss from Pennsylvania in the late 1800s. And it's the story, he was at a lecture and this guy told a story about a ship coming into Cleveland Harbor. And as they were approaching the harbor, the first mate went up to the captain and he said, are you sure this is Cleveland Harbor? And he said, yeah. He said, that's the lighthouse. And he said, but what about the lower lights around the harbor? Because this is a very difficult harbor and with fog and everything else. And he said, yeah, they're out. They're not there. The lower lights weren't lit. Only the lighthouse. And that wasn't enough to get them, but they said, well, we have to try anyway. So they tried to navigate and get into the harbor without the lower lights to guide them, but just with the lighthouse. And unfortunately, the ship, of course, hit rocks, and most of the people were died. They were killed, they drowned, they died in the ship. But the analogy was great. Philip Paul Bliss wrote this beautiful song called The Lower Lights, Our Brightly Beams Our Father's Mercy. And the analogy was that, yes, he will look after the lighthouse, but we have to look after ourselves with the lower lights. And remember that we never know what people are going through in life, and sometimes we are those lower lights for some other people in our lives. This song is called The Lower Lights. 1, 2, 3. Brightly beams our Father's mercy from his lighthouse evermore, but to us he gives the keeping of his lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the way. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. Dark the night of sin has settled, loud the angry billows roll. Eager eyes are watching, longing for the lights along the shore. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the way. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman you may rescue, you sailor tempest tossed, trying now to reach the harbor in the darkness may be lost. Let the lower lights be burning, send a gleam across the wave. Some poor fainting, struggling seaman you may rescue, you may save. So I was watching an interview with Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits, and he wasn't wearing a hat either. But, he was talking about the many songs, many hits he's had, you know, and he said he was asked specifically. Can you hear that? Yeah. And he said, it's a funny thing, I just thought, if you're not supposed to eat at night, why is there a light bulb in the refrigerator? I wondered that. So anyway, Mark Knopfler he was asked about a few different songs, and he was asked about Romeo and Juliet. You're familiar with that song from Dire Straits. And there's a lovely little intro to it, and he said, how did you think of writing that song? And he said, he picked up a dobro. Dobro guitar is like a resonator guitar. It's a lovely tone, lovely sound off it. And he played this little riff on it, and he said, I just played this little riff on it, and I said, oh, I love that riff. I have to write a song for it. It was this, goes something like this. Remember that one? Oh, nobody remembers. This is terrible. Well, anyway, he wrote that song, and of course it was huge. It was a #1 hit 500 years ago. Anyway, I was fiddling around with a similar sort of thing, a little chord, and I was strumming this chord, and it's an E9 chord, but I just thought, oh, it's a lovely strum. I have to write a song around this. So I had a lot of lyrics. And some of the lyrics were about love. If you love something, let it go. If it comes back, it was yours. If it doesn't, it never was. And this is the title track from the CD called Wild Bird, Frightfully. Wild bird, fly free. Wild bird, crazy So this next song is a song we celebrated the centenary last year in 2016 of the Easter Rising in Ireland. It happened on the 24th of April in 1916, which is a very significant day because that's my birthday. But besides that, the song was called Grace, and it tells the story about Grace Gifford, who was the fiancée of a man called Joseph Mary Plunkett. And Joseph Mary Plunkett was one of the rebels, if you like, who was involved in the uprising. And he was one of the signatories on Public Éireann, which was the proclamation to the people of Ireland in 1916. It failed, the rising failed, and all the guys who were involved in it were captured and they were executed by firing squad a few weeks later. And Joseph Mary Plunkett, he was a gentle man, he was a poet, but he was also suffering from tuberculosis, and he was in a sick bed. But he left his sick bed to join Padraig Pearse, who was the leader of the group, to fight at the GPO. The GPO is the General Post Office in Dublin, in O'Connell Street. And that's where the rising took place. But an interesting thing about it was, when they were brought out to be executed and to be shot by firing squad, Joseph Plunkett was so sick he had to be seated. He couldn't stand, so he was sitting in a chair when he was executed and shot. But the story around this is the most poignant love story I've ever heard, because Grace Gifford was engaged to Joseph Plunkett, and he asked permission from the authorities at the time. Could they bring his fiancée into Kilmainham Jail? That's where he was being held. And they agreed. They brought her in to Kilmainham Jail in Dublin, just for a short time, around 8 o'clock in the evening, just before he was going to be executed the next morning. So they were in Kilmainham Jail, and they brought a priest in, and they were married. They hadn't got much time together, and they were supervised during the whole thing. Joseph Plunkett was only 28 years old, and Grace Gifford was around the same age. Interesting, when he was executed, Grace Gifford never remarried. She died a few years ago. And she also lived close to me in Donnybrook. She lived in Ranelagh, who's just the next parish in Donnybrook. But the sadness of that was, it was just a terribly sad love story. And Frank and Sean O'Mara in 1985 wrote this song called Grace. And it was recorded by a friend of mine called Jim McCann, who sadly passed away a few years ago. All of these people are dying. It's incredible. Nobody left after a while. But Jim was a member of the Dubliners, and he also had a solo career, and he recorded this song, and it was a #1. And I had the pleasure of playing with Jim because he had a trio, and his fiddle player left him, and he called me and said, would you stand in and play for a weekend with me? And this was on Thursday, and I used to play on Friday. And I said, oh yeah, sure, no pressure, no problem. So I did play with him for that weekend, and for 6 months after that. He wasn't too pushed about getting a replacement. So we traveled around for about 6 months with Jim McCann, and we played the song every night, of course. A beautiful song, and if you know the chorus, you want to join in. But just before we started, just to give you an idea of what Joseph Plunkett was like, his poetry was beautiful, and one of his most famous poems was called "I See His Blood Upon the Rose." I see his blood upon the rose, and in the stars the glory of his eyes. His body gleams amid eternal snows. His tears fall from the skies. I see his face in every flower. The thunder and the singing of the birds are but his voice, and carven by his power. Rocks are his written words. All pathways by his feet are worn. His strong heart stirs the ever-beating sea. His crown of thorns is twined with every thorn. His cross is every tree. As we gather in the chapel here in old Kilmainham jail, I think about the last few weeks. Oh, will they say we failed? From our school days, they have told us we must yearn for liberty. But all I want in this dark place is to have you here with me. Oh, grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love, I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, or we must say goodbye. Now I know it's hard for you, my love, to ever understand the love I bear for these great men, my love for this great man. Call me to his side down at the GPO. I had to leave my own sick bed. To him I had to go. Oh, grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. And take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love, I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, or we must say goodbye. Now as the dawn is breaking, my heart is breaking too. On this May morn as I walk out, my thoughts will be of you. And I'll write some words upon the wall so everyone will know I loved so much that I could see his blood upon the rose. Oh, grace, just hold me in your arms and let this moment linger. They take me out at dawn and I will die. With all my love, I place this wedding ring upon your finger. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. There won't be time to share our love, for we must say goodbye. Well, this song was, when I first heard the song, I thought it was an old traditional English song because it just had that feel about it. But then I realized it was written by Richard Thompson. I'm sure many of you know Richard Thompson. Richard Thompson was the founder member of Fairport Convention. That was back in, what year was that? Before the 70s. I remember seeing them when they were on the road just a couple of years. And we had a fiddle player in our band, and I thought he was the loudest fiddle player in the world. My goodness, his volume was incredible. Not like our beautiful fiddle player tonight, just totally different. But Mick was our fiddle player, and he had this stack of amps behind me, and the volume, and this was before you did DIs or mic ups. All the sound came from behind, and it deafened all the people. In fact, Dave Swarbrick, the fiddle player from Fairport Convention, went deaf. I'm not surprised. But I went to see them, and I was 10 rows from the front, and I could not, the volume of this fiddle, my ears were ringing for days afterwards. But anyway, they were the first ones. They were the ones who introduced folk rock to the world. And they went on, they had great success. But this particular song is called The Dimming of the Day. And there's some beautiful lines, it's just beautiful, sweet lines in it. The thing about folk music, you get some of these gems. You know, Bob Dylan was a great one for these just magic gems. But one of the lines, I'm drowning in a river of my tears. And the other one is, what days have come to keep us both apart? A broken promise or a broken heart? Just beautiful. This one is called The Dimming of the Day. This old house is falling down around my ears. I'm drowning in a river of my tears. When all my will is gone, you hold me sway. I need you at the dimming of the day. You pull me like the moon pulls on the tide. You know just where I keep my better side. What days have come to keep us far apart? A broken promise or a broken heart. Now all the bonny birds have wheeled away. I need you at the dimming of the day. Come the night, you're only what I want. Come the night, you can be my confidant. Come the night, you're only what I want. Come the night, you can be my confidant. Why don't you come and spend some time with me? I'm living for the night we steal away. I need you at the dimming of the day. I need you at the dimming of the day. So I thought we'd do another Irish song, because that was an English song. That was for Kevin and Christine, because they wanted an English song. So, where are they? They're over there. Okay, there you go. So, you know, Irish diplomacy is the ability to tell someone to go to hell in a way that they will look forward to making the trip. That's Irish diplomacy. But this song was written, excuse me, not by another drop of the hard stuff, as they say. Well, this is the soft stuff. This was written by an American called Steve Earle. I'm sure many of you know Steve Earle. But he was over in Galway in Ireland, and Galway's a beautiful county. In the west of Ireland, you know the song Galway Bay, and there's lots of people go to visit Galway. It's an absolutely beautiful city. But he wrote this song about a Galway girl, and if you're familiar with the song, you'll notice he talked about a girl having, her hair was black and her eyes were blue. So that's not really the sort of image that conjures up when you think of an Irish girl, an Irish colleen. It's normally red hair and brown eyes and things. But what a lot of people don't realize is that Galway had a lot of trade with Spain in the 1800s and for many, many years afterwards. And in Salt Hill, because you mentioned about the Salt Hill Prom, Salt Hill is a lovely little sort of seaside resort just on the outskirts of Galway City. And in Salt Hill, there's a beautiful place called Spanish Arch. And this is representative of the huge connection they had with Spain. And if you go down the coast, down from Galway, down to West Clare, there's another little headland there called Spanish Point. So you just remember that there's a huge Spanish influence in the county of Galway. So they did a lot of trade, obviously, and obviously they sowed, well, you know what I mean. But anyway, so the colouring of the people in Galway, especially the girls, it's been attributed to the bloodline of the Spanish people in Galway. And of course, the Spanish Armada, there was a lot of sinking of the Spanish Armada off the coast. And so all around there, you get a lot of Spanish influence. So that's why it's the eyes of blue and black hair and blue eyes, because that's the true Spanish colouring. So this one is called, what's it called? Galway Girl. Yes. I took a stroll down the old long walk on the day. I met a little girl and we stopped to talk on the pines all day. And I asked her friend, what's a fella to do? Cause her hair was black and her eyes were blue. And I knew right then how you did it well. Down the Salt Hill Prom with the Galway girl. we've come to the end of our lollipop. Oh, the end of the show. So we're going to finish off with a number, and this is it's interesting. As you slide down the banister of life, may the splinters never point the wrong way. So this is about, the song is called If I Should Fall Behind, and you can join in the chorus. The chorus is, if I should fall, I wait for you. No, what's the chorus? I'll wait for you, and should I fall behind, will you wait for me? I go running, and I run with my wife, and there's a few runners here. I know Laurel is here, and there's a few other runners. But a while ago, we ran a 10K race, and unfortunately, well, Marina's a lot younger than me, and she runs faster, so she passed the finish line. But when I eventually passed the finish line, she was there waiting for me. And that's what life is about very often, is waiting for the other person. And the song, when I get this into the right key, first of all. Ah, yes. So, I was just checking President Higgins is still watching us, and he likes to make sure that I'm tuned. So, I'd like to thank a few people. First of all, I'd like to thank our sound man up there, Jeremy, and our lighting, Bev. Thank you so much for tonight. And I'd like to thank Teresa Cochran, who introduced tonight. Teresa, the manager of Bert Church. The hospitality today has been absolutely, we've been here since noon and doing sound checks and all, and their hospitality was absolutely marvellous. So thank you, Teresa, and your whole staff. It's been wonderful. So, the essence of this song is, if you love somebody and they should fall behind, wait for them, because they will catch up. And in typical, as we started, I said, that was the Irish translation, and you can all say that in a few minutes. But I'd just like to leave you with an Irish blessing, Oscailga, and that is Slán Amháile agus Ganari an Bóthar live Galéir. I'm sure you've heard this thing, Ganari an Bóthar Lat, or Ganari an Bóthar live. It means may the road rise to meet you. So the full Irish blessing is, may the road rise to meet you, may the wind be always at your back, may the sun shine warm upon your face and rains fall soft upon your fields. And until we meet again, excuse me, may God hold you in the hollow of his hand. And this song is called If I Should Fall Behind. Together, baby, come what may, that come the twilight, should we lose our way. If as we're walking, the hand should slip free, I'll wait for you, love, should I fall behind, you wait for me. Travel, darling, side by side, we'd help each other stay in stride. But each lover's steps fall so differently. I'll wait for you, and should I fall behind, will you wait for me? I fall behind, will you wait for me? Just like to thank you for being a great audience. But I'd also like to thank everybody in the band here and just to introduce them. Over on the brass here we have John, Mark and Dylan. On the brass section here at the back. And on drums here at the back, he's hidden behind the piano and everything else, but we have Gary Wise from Calgary. And on double bass, Stefano Baldo. And then over on this side, we have Brent Sikorsky on electric and acoustic guitar. And back over this side, on fiddle, Barbo Lorenzo. And on my left side, we have on mandolin and vocals, Thomas Cummins Russell. And here, my right-hand woman here, Katie Wind on vocals and guitar. And back here behind me, the man who's been part of most of the arranging. This is the man who did all the sound engineering on the CD as well. He's doing all the arrangement for the brass. And really, a sort of a band leader here we have on piano and vocals and on accordion, Gerry Proppy. So we hope you've enjoyed listening as much as we've enjoyed playing, and we wish you Canary and Boherlat agus Slán Galéir. Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Where's that girl with the red dress on? Some folks call her Dinah. Stole my heart away from me down in Louisiana. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Hey. fixed mind we never do look sour. Travel all over the country, playing by the hour. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry. Take me back to Tulsa, I'm too young to marry.